Imaginary's latest film to drop from Blumhouse Production, but does it offer a good scare or is it destined to have a flop? Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema, and yes, we're going to be talking Imaginary, the latest 2024 film from Blumhouse Productions. Let me know down in the comments below if you've seen it, if you enjoy it, or it doesn't handle the production as well, or if this review is what's going to be setting you up to decide if you're going to watch it or not. So just generally going into the synopsis, as a stepmother tries to find connection with her newfound stepdaughters in the reconciliation of her past as well, she faces new circumstances when one of her stepdaughters gathers an imaginary friend that's in the shape of a stuffed bear, but things start to come out of the blue. Things are different than they might expect, and there's horrors that come to haunt the family that take them into a whole new world. So just generally going into positive, I do like the atmosphere this film brings, and it goes into a few different twists and turns about the way, setting up certain boundaries within the characters, what they do with the acting, certain aspects to the film that sets them up in a new neighborhood, creates the boundaries and ideas that you might expect for a stepmom trying to connect with her new stepdaughters in films from the past, and just generally the stepdaughters not always finding the right note with their new mom, or just the older one in general, and just the ideas they have with that reconciles a new idea that makes sense for the approach that the stepdaughters have going toward it, the youngest sort of having a connection more so than the older, and how they attribute ideas and character development to that is fairly basic to it, but offers just enough that builds up the tension of the story as they establish going into a new house and the events progress to new areas where you start to go into new realms that I didn't expect this film to go into, having not really seen much of the trailers. And the teddy bear is something that's a really good aspect that is meant to represent something more innocent and ends up being more scary, creating that sort of different retribution to the aspect of what you may expect. And of course, being the film itself, you of course expect it to be more horrific, and so it does have a few different moments that it really elevates its tension. Some people did get scared in the theater around me, but in general the aspects of the film goes into a psychological element that I enjoy psychology, and so it intrigues me just on that note for the way they develop the mindset of a child and certain sequences of the stepmother's past, how they go into it, how they integrate the character development and the integration between each of the different characters involved. And so going into the mixed element, some of the film, it goes about in a way that doesn't always progress in a natural fashion. Certain things are clearly contrived in certain ways that I don't feel too overborne to really take into the subject of what you have to suspend your disbelief for, but there's still some moments where you kind of have to have that set mindset where not everything's going to be perfect. It's not going to flow in the exact way that it would naturally flow gradually, and it does have the common horror tropes in general senses of characters following into places they don't naturally go if it was real life, and so it just does have those missed aspects that could work or not work for some audiences. And going into negatives, we got some contrivances, like I said, that really overblow what it is going for. It becomes ridiculous how certain characters follow a certain train of line into certain horrific character moment, and just certain. There's one character that's a neighbor. He sort of appears, and the first sequence you get is him offering the daughter pills and goes into assumptions of building up his character around this drug addict possibly, or someone that drinks or does all these ridiculous things that just goes out of proportion to the 15-year-old stepdaughter and really sets up an odd sort of character. And he doesn't have a big part within the second half of the film, and so that's all of his big moments is sort of causing a little bit of trouble, but it doesn't have much bearance on the film outside of sort of having trouble with the stepdaughter and how that interferes with how the stepdaughter feels about the mother and how the mother feels about her. And what that all integrates is something that sets up boundaries in a forced fashion to sort of set up the ideas of what the teddy bear could be, or how that elevates the moment, that it creates a weird circumstance. And there's certain moments where they just take you into realms that doesn't really make as much sense. I wasn't personally as horrified by this film, maybe because I'm more into horror films at this point, that I'm kind of more it's a more tame one, but it may not always work for everyone just because it sort of goes about certain tropes that you kind of expect it to go in different routes. And while I didn't expect everything or even the general direction once they subvert to the second half of the film, it does follow some common ground, certain ideas where you're not really feeling as frightened by how it's going to progress than you ought to be. And even in the latter half of the film, it kind of has a surprise ending that subverts what the ending looks like, and so it doesn't quite work for me. And I feel like the film is trying to be more clever than it thinks it ought to be, where you think you're at the end and it throws you back in to a point where it kind of throws off the tone of how you're progressing, and you still don't feel the full tension because of how they set up these character roles to be survivable. And so it doesn't always lean on all the right elements that you already predict what's going to happen. So that's just my general thoughts on Imaginary. Let me know down in the comments below if you're going to see it, or if you have seen it, and what your thoughts are on it on general. I do generally enjoy this film in some aspects, but it does have a big element of misses, and therefore I have to rate it a 5.5 out of 10, and that's just my personal rating and review on Imaginary. Let me know down in the comments about all that. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're already, to help me build this film culture community all together. That's just all. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.